The 2024 Democratic nominee for Senate in the state of Texas, Colin Allred, is reportedly seriously considering a 2026 Senate bid for John Cornyn's Senate seat in 2026. Does he have a chance at winning? We're going to look at all that in today's video. Hello and welcome. Colin Allred, at his first public appearance since losing to Senator Ted Cruz, Allred tells anti-Trump conservatives to stay in the fight in this new article from the Dallas Morning News. The article begins by saying, on a night when he urged a group of erstwhile Republicans to stay in the fight, former U.S. Rep. Colin Allred said he's seriously considering a 2026 Senate campaign against incumbent Senator John Cornyn, or the winner of what's expected to be a bruising GOP primary. Allred appeared at an event sponsored by Principles First, a group of conservatives opposed to President Donald Trump. It was his first public appearance since his loss to Senator Ted Cruz. In an interview with the Dallas Morning News before the event, Allred lamented his loss to Cruz, briefly discussed his political future, and delighted in the time he's spending with his young family. It was his first public interview since his Senate defeat. The Dallas Democrat said he would make a decision on another Senate run this summer. I'm looking at it and seriously considering it, Allred said. This is a time for everybody to realize just what's at stake and how important it is that we all stay involved. Cornyn released a video Wednesday launching his Senate campaign in what's expected to be an explosive Republican primary. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is in the exploratory stage of a potential Senate campaign against Cornyn. Other Republicans, including U.S. Reps Beth Van Duyne of Irving and Wesley Hunt of Houston, have been mentioned as possible GOP Senate candidates. Texas Republican Party Chairman Abraham George, who lives in Plano, said the 2026 Republican Senate nominee would be Allred or any other Democrat. I don't think we have anything to worry about, George said. Allred had a really bad loss to Ted Cruz. Allred didn't offer more details about his deliberations to the news or during his comments at the Principles First Forum. After retreating from the public view in November, Allred has had a series of coffees with donors and activists who supported his Senate campaign. His name has been mentioned as a possible 2027 Dallas mayoral candidate. Allen shrugged off but didn't rule out that prospect. Right now, I'm just hanging out with my family, Allred said. While Allred said his life was largely consumed by playing the video game Minecraft with his two young sons, he called on Democrats, Republicans, and Independents to resist Trump's policies and offer alternative plans. A three-term congressman, Allred ran for Senate touting his bipartisanship. His supporters included former U.S. Representative Liz Cheney of Wyoming and Adam Kinzinger of Illinois, two Republicans that have been very vocal and against President Trump. Allred said he agreed to speak at Principles First because of its mission to get Americans to focus on issues and principles. Established in 2019 as a landing spot for disaffected Republicans, the organization serves as an alternative to CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference. The hometown crowd warmly received Allred as he sat for a discussion centered largely on foreign policy with Heath Mayo, the group's founder. This is my first time doing anything since the campaign, like in front of people, and I don't want to do it with some partisan group, Allred said. I wanted to do something like this. Allred asked the crowd of the Arts District Mansion not to give up on politics. I'm encouraging people to get off your defensive crutch, get off the doom scrolling, and do something in your community. Allred said, I guarantee you'll feel better. Throughout the hour-long conversation, Allred criticized Trump's administration policies. Folks elected Donald Trump so they could buy groceries, not Greenland, Allred said. Allred also criticized some of Trump's cabinet picks, saying Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth couldn't manage a hot dog stand, and there were concerns that National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard was a Russian plant. The Republican-controlled Senate should have blocked many of Trump's appointments, Allred said, and he predicted more controversies akin to the security breach in which top Trump officials inadvertently included a journalist in a group chat. That's all breaking as of the time I'm recording this video, as that's all coming out. This is the first example of what will likely be that we'll see in some kind of nonsense happens because we have people in place who are unqualified and shouldn't be in the job in the first place. Allred also questioned Trump's use of tariffs, saying Texas lawmakers should be against them. Earlier this month, Trump postponed 25% tariffs on many imports from Canada and Mexico as fears of a trade war persisted among some economic experts. The White House says its tariff policy involves stopping the smuggling of fentanyl across the nation's borders. If you're an elected official in Texas, you better be against tariffs, Allred said. We're the #1 trade state in the country. That's what we do. That's our economy. George, the Republican Party chairman, said Americans were pleased with Trump's policy actions and dismissed Allred's criticism as partisan spin. He's a Democrat, George said. Trump's doing a great job. Every day is an adventure. Allred on Tuesday briefly discussed his failed 2024 Senate campaign. It was a tough election, Allred said of the forum. In a lot of ways, it was an election that was dominated by things that were not about the candidates. There was a malaise, there was an atmosphere that was difficult to punch through. Allred told the news he did what he could to win, but it was a bad election cycle for Texas Democrats. He said voter turnout among Democrats dropped 6% in Dallas County and 10% in Harris County. Trump beat Vice President Kamala Harris by nearly 14 percentage points. Cruz beat Allred by nearly 9 points. There are certainly some things that were outside of my control, but I also think there are some things that the Democratic Party fundamentally got wrong, Allred said. In order to win elections, whether it's in Texas or anywhere else, we have to address some of those things, and that's more about the one candidate or campaign. He predicted he would win, or he would again be a candidate for office, perhaps in 26. I still want to be involved in the surface, and I will be, Allred said. What I think is really important is that we just not wait until election, or that we not just wait until the election to be activists and to be involved, because there's so much to do every single day. For at least the next few months, Allred said his main job is being a family man. I've been enjoying the time with my family, he said. I've got 2 little boys, and for me, getting that time to recover has been important. The Dallas Morning News article was written by Gromer Jeffers Jr. So, what does this mean for 2026? Well, looking at the, obviously, electoral side of things, the 2026 Senate race is going to be Republican 4-term incumbent John Cornyn. He is facing a Republican primary challenger in all likelihood from the Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton. And the speculation is that if Cornyn does run and Paxton both run, President Trump will endorse Paxton and try and primary out Cornyn after Cornyn is not fully supportive of all of President Trump's nominees for a lot of his cabinet positions. There could be a Republican primary challenge from Paxton. Trump has also shown a lot of support for Paxton in the past. When Paxton was going through, I believe it was his impeachment situation, they were trying to impeach him in 2023. Trump stood by him and supported him and released statements putting out his support for Paxton, which I'm sure he would also reciprocate in this race. So whether or not it's going to be John Cornyn or maybe Ken Paxton, that's still up for debate, but it's looking like if they do win, whoever wins the primary will be facing off against Colin Allred. Currently, the election predictions from Inside Elections and Cook Political Report has Texas as a solid Republican ranking. Sabato's Crystal Ball has it as likely Republican. What happened in 2024? We saw Donald Trump defeat Kamala Harris statewide at the presidential level by about 14 points. On the Senate side of things, we saw Ted Cruz defeat Colin Allred by in between 8 and 9 points. And we can get a little bit more into the specifics in 1 second, but as the article mentioned, we saw Dallas turnout for the Democrats was down. Fort Worth, Colin Allred and Ted Cruz essentially tied there. Whereas if you look at the presidential map, just to show you what Fort Worth looked like, Donald Trump won it by 5 points. On the Senate side of things, Colin Allred did better than Kamala Harris, but still, Cruz did it well enough there, and along with statewide, to win. Looking down to the Houston area, 54-43 for Allred over Cruz, 11 points. The presidential race, it was about a 6-point win. So Allred did better than Harris did in a lot of places, and also Cruz did worse than Trump did, but still, Cruz was able to win the overall state of Texas at the Senate race by 8 points. And that's really the problem for Colin Allred. When you look at the state of Texas, it's pretty much universal that Ted Cruz is the more electorally weaker of the 2 senators from Texas. In 2024, as I mentioned, Cruz won the state of Texas by 8.5 points, getting 53.05% to Allred's 44.56. In 2020, John Cornyn won re-election by 9.6%. Again, likely Republican, but that was also 2 years after 2018, where Ted Cruz won re-election by only 2.6% against Beto O'Rourke. And it looked like for a while Texas was slowly starting to trend blue, and 2018 was a warning shot to the Republicans that it could potentially be very competitive. And then we saw in the Senate level, Cornyn won in 2020 by a likely Republican margin, and now in 2024, Ted Cruz also won by a likely Republican margin. So does this mean Texas is going to be a safe Senate seat in 2026 or a likely one? We're going to have to wait and see how things develop on that front. But back in 2014, Cornyn was reelected by 27 points. I don't think that's going to happen again, as that didn't happen last time. But after what we saw from President Trump in 2024, around a 14-point win, at a very least, we could expect the state of Texas to start out on the Senate side of things somewhere between safe Republican and likely Republican. I'm more on the side of safe Republican, but we're going to have to wait and see how that develops. Colin Allred, it's tough because trying to have a Democratic senator in a Republican state, it's kind of like trying to get a Republican senator in a Democratic state. You can have the best candidate like we saw with Beto O'Rourke in 2018, and you're still probably not going to be able to win if the national environment's not right. Now, will 2026 be a good night for the Democrats? It's too early to say, but the historical precedent does show that it should be a good night for Democrats. We're going to have to wait and see how the Trump administration is doing. We're probably not going to get a good idea until like Labor Day of 2026 before we can really get a good idea of what the 2026 election will be like and what the electorate will be like. But in a perfect scenario for Democrats, could Texas be a likely or even maybe a lean Republican state? It's certainly possible. I would not bet on it. I think it's far more likely that in the Democrats' best case scenario, Texas still goes over 5 points to the Republicans, but under 15 and goes down to likely. But for right now, I would keep it as safe Republican, though at very least, Colin Allred does represent a Democratic candidate in Texas that does have some name recognition after just being the Democratic nominee for Senate in 2024. And maybe if the Republican primary gets very nasty and gets a lot of Texas voters dissatisfied, maybe that can give Colin Allred a little bit of a competitive boost. Though again, I would not be banking on Colin Allred winning a Senate race in Texas in 2026. Could he make it a little bit competitive? Probably, maybe, but I don't think it's going to be flipping Democrat in 2026. But we'll see how this unfolds. This is certainly another race that is not really competitive right now, but over time maybe could become more competitive if the national environment shifts. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a like. Please remember to leave a comment below telling me your thoughts. Do you think Colin Allred will run? If you do you think he would win? Do you think John Cornyn will win? Do you think Ken Paxton will win? I'm very interested to hear what your comments are about that. Also, please remember to hit subscribe as I post at least a new video every single day, and you're not going to want to miss those. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next video.